All right, let's dive into a story. It's a story about theft, but probably not the kind you're thinking of. We're going on a journey that starts with swords and ends, believe it or not, with spreadsheets. So to really get a handle on this, let's start with a simple comparison. On one side, you've got your old-school physical theft. It's risky, it's direct, you know who's doing it, and it's limited. You can only carry so much loot. But on the other side, we have institutional usury. It looks safe, it's super abstract, and, well, its potential is boundless. This is the shift we're going to unpack today. Okay, so let's wind the clock all the way back. Let's start at the very beginning with what you could call Crime 1.0. The most basic way of taking something that isn't yours. You know, for most of human history, taking stuff was pretty straightforward. We're talking plundering villages, highway banditry, outright extortion. It's forceful, it's direct, but here's the kicker. It was incredibly risky. Societies have always cracked down hard on this stuff, so it was a very, very dangerous way to make a living. That inherent danger, that's a huge problem if your goal is unjust gain. So the question became, if brute force is too risky, where does that desire go? Well, it turns out it went looking for a new home, and it found one in the marketplace. And this is our next big step in the story. The crime didn't just disappear. Oh no, it got a whole lot smarter. It moved right into the world of commerce, learning how to hide inside what looked like perfectly legitimate business deals. And it usually happened in one of two ways. First, you could cause a deficit for the other guy. Think about a merchant putting his thumb on the scale, or selling you something knowing full well it's got a hidden flaw. The second way, a little more clever, was to cause an excess for yourself. This is where you'd plant fake bidders at an auction to artificially pump up the price, or slap on some crazy late payment penalties. Both are ways to corrupt a fair exchange.
Now, this whole practice actually has a name. In the source material we're looking at, it's called RIBA. And the definition here is absolutely key. It's any excess, any extra bit you get above and beyond a fair equivalent exchange, where you didn't provide any actual extra value. That extra profit from the faulty product, that's RIBA.
So this idea of gaining an excess, it didn't just stay a sneaky trick in the market. It was too good for that. It evolved into a full-blown profession all on its own, money lending. Suddenly, the product being traded was just money itself. The whole thing became completely detached from actual goods and services. And this creates this really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty lopsided relationship. You've got the moneylender, who's basically trying to get a guaranteed positive return no matter what happens to the borrower. But in a way, the debtor is also playing the game. They're using money they haven't actually earned to try and create value. It's a power struggle, right? Each side trying to exploit the other's situation. But even this professional system, as powerful as it was, had a couple of major roadblocks. Think about it. First, there's only so much physical gold and silver in the world. You can't lend what you don't have. And second, you can only squeeze so much interest out of one person before they just break. These two things acted like natural brakes on the system.
So here is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How do you smash through those barriers? How do you get past the limits of physical money and individual debtors to create a system that is truly boundless? The answer was an absolute stroke of genius, and it changed the world forever.
And that brings us to the final and most powerful stage of our story, the modern banking system, and the invention of what we now call credit.
The solution, the way they broke free, was so simple, it's kind of mind-blowing. They just stopped lending real money. Instead of handing over a bag of gold coins, they did something completely different.
Okay, so how in the world does that work? Well, here's the magic trick. A banker creates a loan. For the bank, that loan is a liability on their books. But that very same liability becomes a new, spendable currency for the borrower, the obligor. Credit is literally created out of thin air based on nothing more than the borrower's promise to pay it back someday. And just like that, poof, the money supply is no longer tied to a pile of gold in a vault. It can expand forever.
So problem solved for the lenders, right? Well, yeah, but this brilliant move had a massive hidden side effect. The very target of the usurpation changed. It wasn't just about the two people in the deal anymore.
Here's the thing you have to wrap your head around. Every single time a bank issues a loan, it also creates a brand new deposit out of nothing. This is new money, and it doesn't just sit there. It immediately starts flowing out into the wider economy. There's this quote from our source material that just nails the absolute weirdness of this situation.
The borrower, the obliger, is out there spending money that doesn't really belong to anyone. It's not their money, it's not the banker's money, it's not from another saver, it's just new. Which leads us to the final and most important question of all. If this new money is just created from a promise and floods into the economy, who's actually on the hook for it? Who ultimately pays the price for this new, boundless system?
The answer? It's everyone else. The general public. You, me, the third party that had nothing to do with that original loan. The usurpation is no longer aimed at just the person across the table. It's aimed at the entire economic system that has to absorb this newly created money.
And it is fascinating, really fascinating, to see how this connects back to ancient warnings. This verse here warns against usury being doubled and quadrupled. What is that if not a perfect description of a system designed for limitless, exponential growth?
And so that's the thought I want to leave you with today. In our modern global economy, where entire governments, massive corporations, and every single one of us can be an obligor, is worth asking yourself, who's the one taking out the loan and who's the third party that's ultimately paying the price?